Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Cindie Chavez here. Today is Wednesday, July the 18th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And I'm still getting used to the fact that I'm now doing 3 shows in a row with Cindie. Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, and Wednesday morning. It's like, whoa, I'm not used to this. This is good, though. I like it. It's just different.
Well, it was funny yesterday afternoon when you said your second daily dose of happy, and I went, oh.
That's right. There's a second one. How about that? Yeah, you're not used to that part either. That's really wild. But it's all good. It's been really great. I've enjoyed having you to talk to now for a third day in a row, and I'm looking forward to doing that on a regular basis. It's just something new to get used to. That's all.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it also.
This morning when I was waking up, I found myself in a place where I was focusing on focusing. That sounds weird, but I was doing that. I was practicing guiding my focus in the direction that I wanted it to go. And there were a number of reasons for that, things that I was trying to attract into my life and things that I want to have happen in certain ways. One of which being my wife has to go to Rhode Island for a funeral today. And I was thinking, I really want to pass energy her way so that she can, be in alignment for it and have a safe trip down and safe trip back, because I want her back, and just basically have a good experience rather than what can often happen with that kind of thing, where it's very down, very sad, and so forth. And we even talked about that this morning after we both got up and we were doing our getting into alignment routine together, and I feel a whole lot better about it. But the point of that's like the side point. The main point that I wanted to make is I was really noticing that as I held my focus, and I was really proud of how well I was holding my focus on what I wanted, and throwing away, and no, here comes a negative thought. No, I don't want that one. Another negative thought. Nope, I don't want that one. And another one. No, I don't want that one. Doing the sorting very effectively and really directing my attention on the positive expression of what I wanted and the positive feeling associated with it. What I was noticing is how when you do that, or when I do that anyway, I suspect it's true for all people, the longer that you do it, the more momentum takes over, and it becomes easier. And I had not really grokked that, if you know what I mean. I had not really taken that in, that during any given session, the more that you focus on it, the easier it gets. And really the only trick there is recognizing that it's getting easier so you can relax and just not try so hard. Keep the focus, but not try so hard, and relax and release and relax and release. And that helps also to build the momentum. I hadn't really put all that together in my mind, but this morning it came together.
I feel like it's like the idea of getting into a groove.
Yeah.
As you were talking about that, I was thinking of, or trying to think of, other examples of times when we do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, well, it kind of happens with lots of different tasks that we set ourselves to. Like if you're a writer or an artist, setting in to start writing or to start painting, or if you're cooking or knitting, or I'm thinking of all these activities I might do, but working on a computer, anything, it's like you get set up and then, I forgot to get, like, even for the podcast, in the morning when I'm getting set up, I make sure I have water, I make sure I have tea, I make sure the overhead light's on, and it's like getting ready, and then, okay, ready to go. It's now I'm ready.
Right.
Oh no, wait, I forgot the water.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're getting set up to do something, and then you're finally set up, and then you start, and then you just get into a groove, and it feels easy. That's what that reminded me of. And I think that happens a lot of times if we don't stick with it, like until we're comfortable, until it's getting a little bit easier, until, like you said, you're building up some momentum.
Yeah, that's the key.
At the very beginning, it's easy to just sort of, just chuck it. It's not happening. You got to stay with it a little bit.
Well, you're right. And chucking it was my first reaction way back when. I would chuck it after about 3/4 of a second. And then, 4 days later, I was up to a full second and a half, so I'd made improvement. But after I did that for a while, then it was all about the effort. And I'm like, I gotta focus. And it's a strong, strong effort. Oh, this is so tiring. I can't do this anymore. But today it's about put some initial effort, and yeah, I had to really focus there because I was finding myself drawn over to the dark thoughts that I didn't want to have. But I kept pulling myself back, and it was a bit of a wrestling match, and then I just stuck with it, and then it got easier, and that's what was so cool. I hadn't really had that feeling before, so I feel like I had a breakthrough.
Yay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you'll notice it next time again,
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah. The other thing I noticed, I mean, we were talking about vulnerability yesterday, and what's the correct word for it, and so forth. But the feeling associated with it, and by associated with it, I mean the positive sense of vulnerability, um, the feeling of being emotionally open and so forth. That also played a role this morning because as I was doing all this, and after I did all this, and Louise and I did our joint aligning and so forth, I found myself kind of expressing emotions that I didn't even know where they were coming from. It's like all of a sudden all these emotions started coming out.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, I think the two go hand in hand. As you do this thing and take advantage of momentum and let the momentum take over, what also happens because you're aligning is you're opening up, and so as you're opening up, stuff comes out, and sometimes you need like a washcloth to clean it up. But
Well, that's interesting though, because that idea of being in alignment, and we know that when you're in alignment, there's no resistance or less resistance
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
And so there would be less guardedness. That's what we were talking about
That was
yesterday.
the big word, right? And that's exactly
Yeah.
what there was less of. I was recognizing the guardedness this morning. That was part of what I was trying to distract myself from. I was recognizing there were a number of ways I was feeling very guarded, very kind of tense inside. Like, no, I don't want that. That's not where I want to go. So trying to move away from that, and in the course of moving away from that, that's when all of a sudden everything started to kind of come out. So it was good. It's been a good morning so far. I mean, the day's hardly started, and boom, I got that.
Well, I thought of a word yesterday,
Oh, what's that?
accessible.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's good. That's much better than
You were
vulnerable.
saying I don't like the word vulnerable because there are so many definitions of it that say, susceptible to something that you
Right.
don't want, or that you're weak if you're vulnerable, or a weakness, or all these things that don't have a great positive, sounds to us. But you were saying open emotionally, and I thought accessible. Some people don't seem very accessible because they seem guarded.
Yeah. Accessible. That's a great word. I like that one.
I'll keep working on that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one, I think.
Yeah,
And I think that's
that one's so much. I can't think of any negative associations with that. I mean, that's really good.
so if we and people pick up on that,
Oh yeah.
right? And so that's the thing, is that we can still be empowered. We can still be trying to think of the word. I wanted it first to choose the word protective. In other words, when we are vulnerable, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that we're just leaving ourselves open to anything that wants to come in. I mean, but it does mean that we are accessible. That's how we connect with people. So I like that idea.
Yeah, I think accessible is a great word. That's a nice
And being
find.
in
So
alignment.
congratulations. Yeah. That's a lot. But I think I'm going to write to Esther and say, you ought to put accessible in wherever you've got vulnerable in the book.
Well, I just like the little tweak that we made in that sentence. Instead of saying the illness stems from your vulnerability and guardedness, the illness stems from you being so guarded about your vulnerability. I mean, I think it's a different meaning, but I think
Hmm.
it's more accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think so. Because the guardedness is the part we want to avoid anyway. The
Right.
guardedness sounds like it should be good, doesn't it? I mean, on some level, it sounds like, well, you're looking for safety, you're looking for protection, but there's also that negative side to guardedness. The guardedness is, oh God, I'm cringing inside. I don't feel real good, and
Well,
that
I think that's what I was trying to reach for, is that we can be vulnerable and still be empowered, still be aware, still be discerning, and still be open. Just
yeah,
because we're discerning and aware of what's going on doesn't mean that we have to just be open ourselves completely to anything. I mean, that's where the discernment comes in. So it's an
okay,
discussion. But I like that we worked alignment in there, because you noticed that the more aligned you got, the more easier it was to be authentic about what you were feeling.
Which I knew theoretically will happen over time anyway. The nice new experience was how quickly I got there. How
Yeah.
quickly I got to the point where it got easy within, I don't I can't say I can assign how much time there was to it, but I'm going to guess that the whole process while I was still in bed was maybe 20 to 30 minutes, something like that.
Pretty good.
It's very good. Yep. For me, it's outstanding. For me, that's a world record. But so to
Well,
have gotten that far was great. But also, during that time, how far in did it start to get easier? I think maybe like 15 minutes in, it started to get easier. So I had to work through quite a bit to get to the point where it was easy. But
well,
then I
it's
noticed it.
interesting. Like you say, 15 minutes, which made me think automatically about meditation,
Hmm.
because people struggle with meditation. I struggle with meditation sometimes, right? And it's like I get up, I get out of the chair after
Hmm.
what? Not after 15 minutes, because if I stay with it for 15 minutes, I'm there. I've gotten it.
Hmm.
But if I only stay with it for 5 minutes, and I get out of the chair, right? I get out. I say, yeah, I can't get there today, because I wasn't patient enough to stay with it like you did this morning, for 15 minutes. But it's always worth it.
It's
And
almost like 15 minutes is a. I mean, obviously it's kind of an arbitrary number, but that general range, somewhere around 15 minutes, that seems to be an indication of how much momentum of all kinds we have going on in our lives. Where it
yeah,
takes
that's
the
why I
15
brought it
minutes
up.
to overcome it.
I was like, well, that's funny that he said 15 minutes, because 15 to 20 minutes is usually about the amount of time it takes to really get settled in with something. And it's so funny that we quit so early, because 15 minutes is not that much time in the scheme of things, right? It's not that much time.
Well, I think the reason we quit is because we don't yet have enough built up in our reserve, in our collection of experience to say to us, this 15 minutes is going to be worth it.
Right.
And so we go in with doubt. We go in with, oh,
Yeah.
well, this isn't going to work. And of course, we give up really easily because we don't believe it's going to work. But as we get more and more positive experiences with 15 minutes, with turning the momentum around and getting the momentum going in our direction so that it's easier, if we believe in it more, we start to believe, yeah, that 15 minutes is actually really going to be worthwhile. And am I there completely? No, but I certainly had a breakthrough, and that breakthrough is going to make it easier for me next time. I
Yeah.
have a suspicion that after I do this for a while, I'll probably fall into it pretty quickly. And I'll
Oh,
fall into it
yeah.
quickly because I believe that I will.
Well, and not only that, that you're actually changing the neural connections in your
Well, true,
physical
yeah,
brain while
yeah.
you're doing it. And the more they change and connect in a different way, the easier it is. I think that part of it, that lends itself to us wanting to quit so early too, is that we're so used to everything coming to us instantly.
Yeah, the
We
only
just
problem is the stuff that comes to us
microwave.
instantly is usually stuff we don't want.
Well, I know. I don't mean manifestations. I mean just normal course of life, like tapping your foot at the microwave because it's taking two minutes, for something to.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, when I look at there's been a lot of talk and a lot written about how we are living in a times of instant gratification.
Right.
But I look at what goes on leading up to the desire for the instant gratification for any given thing. And I really do believe it exists primarily because so much of what comes into our life we don't want. So we want the instant gratification of the thing we do want just because we need to get this other stuff out of the way fast. It's like, I just don't have time for all this stuff I don't want.
I think we want everything to go fast, and that's probably the biggest struggle with meditation, with getting into alignment like you did with
Hmm.
focus,
Hmm.
because it takes a little bit of patience and time.
It's funny too because I
Totally
didn't think
worth
of
it.
it as meditation. I'm sure it was in some sense, but I didn't think of it as meditation. I was working pretty hard, and yet,
Oh no,
nevertheless,
I'm just talking about both of those things. The parallel between the time it takes, with meditation, with focus, with learning something new. All those things, they just don't happen instantly most of the time.
and,
But you're
and
right that you can start to. The more you do it, the easier it is to drop in.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
and the parallel between the two are so close between meditation and deliberate creation type activity I was doing. I mean, the result is the same, the purpose is the same, the method is almost the same. The only thing that's really different is one involves just focusing on calming your mind, the other one it focuses on focusing on what you want. But they're both different kinds. They're both kinds of focus. It's just what you're focusing on is a little bit different. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same activity.
Yesterday when we were reading Abraham saying, you think that these things in your physical experience, they are real and that
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts are just thoughts. That you don't realize your thoughts are real and
Mm.
creating what's real. I thought that was really powerful and lends itself to me having a different perspective about focus and about meditation. And it's like, this is these thoughts are real things.
Well, isn't that what we're all really trying to learn anyway?
Yeah,
We're trying to learn to believe that and to apply it and to make it part of our daily existence that our thoughts are creating all the time. Because
right.
it's one thing to believe it, theoretically. It's another thing to believe it practically, experientially.
Yeah, because you're doing it.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, we can have all the theory and we can know all the tools, but we have to put them into practice. And that part takes the time and effort.
It does. But it's worth it.
I remember one time I was reading something and I'd finished this book. I don't know if it was an Abraham Hicks book, but I immediately went on the quest for the next book.
Hmm.
And I feel like the universe spoke to me pretty clearly. It said, "You have read enough books. Now it's time to put it into practice." But, oh, okay, all right.
I mean, we actually have to do this stuff?
You have to put into practice all the stuff that you've learned. You've learned so much. Now focus on the doing of it. Focus on putting it into practice. Um,
That's what I
I
love
mean,
about Mike Dooley's example of getting in the car to go someplace. He says you get in the car and you put your vision boards in the back seat and you got the secret on the seat next to you on the side and you got the engine started and you're sitting there and you check the mirrors and everything's great, but you don't go anywhere because you got to put the car in gear.
just sitting in the driveway.
That's it. You're just sitting there like everything's great.
Give me another book. Right. I mean, it was funny because that experience was probably 10 years ago, and I still remember it very clearly. So I know the message really got through. It was like, oh, okay.
So what was I mean, I'm not asking you to think about specifically what happened 10 years ago, but what were some of your earliest experiences with applying it? I mean, do you remember any particular breakthroughs where like you applied it and like, oh, wow, this is great? Because that's what I keep thinking about. I think about times in my life where I did apply and I got a result and it was like, whoa, it really worked. Like I actually applied this thing and got a result that I wanted.
I think my thinking back as far as I can, it would be several times that I created a vision board because that was one of the first things that I learned about. And I know that some people create vision boards, and I used to teach a class on this. It's one of the first classes I ever taught. So everybody teaches it different, and
Mm-hmm.
some people want you to put that vision board on your, refrigerator so you see it every day, and some people, don't. And both times with mine, I made a vision board, and then I just it ended up being stuck in a closet or a drawer. It wasn't something that I looked at all the time, but I do remember finding it, like a year later or 2 years later, cleaning out a closet. Oh, finding the vision board and every single thing on it had come to pass.
Wow.
That was one of the things. And then the segment intending tool. I really think that, I can't point to a specific story to tell you about something that happened, but I do remember that I started going through my day, and I can't say I do this anymore, but at that time, this was the thing I was focused on, and it was really intending every segment of my day to be a certain way. I really got focused on that, so if I had a phone call to make, I'd make an intention on what I wanted to feel, what I wanted the outcome to be, how I wanted the other person, to feel, how I wanted the whole energy of the phone call to be. I mean, I'm not saying I spent a lot of time, but I was conscious of it, saying, okay, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be on the phone, and I want, I'd like it to be a good experience. And then I do it with whatever I was doing after that. And after that, every little segment that I had of some task going on, I would make an intention about it. And it really was powerful how I noticed that it changed things for me energetically. And as far as being in alignment, because it's hard to get out of alignment when you're making an intention for every little thing you do.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends what your intentions are. I mean, I found that I am very good at having intentions that I don't want. and I'm great at focusing on those.
Well, no, but that's what I mean about conscious intention. Taking the moment to ask myself, like I do when you were talking about waking up, I do most mornings. I did this morning. I asked myself, what do you want to experience today? How do you want to feel today? What do you want to accomplish today? And I answered those questions. And to me, that's the intention setting part of the day.
Okay. All right. So, deliberate intention on what you want.
Yeah. And so I remembered that. That was powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And then the most recent, was, of course, in January when we were doing the podcast, and I felt a head cold.
Oh, I remember, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I just did not want that thing. And so I found myself pivoting anytime my mind would start to travel down that, oh my gosh, my head's starting to hurt. I think I have a fever. My nose is feeling clogged up, and half of it was a real experience. And then the other half, I think I was inventing in my head, because my story would start going down. Oh, I think I have chills. Oh my gosh, this is going to last forever. It's going to ruin the podcast. That terrible drama. I created an opera in my mind, and learning how to say, no, like you were saying this morning. No, I don't want that. I'd say, no, what do I want? I want to feel good. I want to wake up energized. I want to jump out of the bed instead of feeling all achy and groaning. I want to feel great. I want to get up. I want to do the podcast. I want my voice to be clear. I just start going down the road of telling the story.
Mm.
And I mean, the thing is I had to do it over and over, because suddenly I'd realize I was going back down that other road of, despair about having a cold. And I would quickly pivot, and I never got the cold. It tried, but it didn't actually ever come. And I went through the whole series of, I'm making air quotes, fighting it. I really wasn't fighting it. That's the thing, is I was pivoting over to what I wanted.
Yeah.
So that's a time that's like one of the most recent and very powerful. It's like I moved to another level of understanding the whole pivot.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. And, we were talking a few minutes ago about 15 minutes to overcome the momentum. And it reminded me just now that Abraham talks about 17 seconds and 64 seconds. 17 seconds to attract a new thought, 64 seconds to begin a new manifestation. And I'm realizing that I think there's a tendency we humans have. We like the 17 seconds because it sounds a whole lot easier. And certainly it's a good idea to focus on stuff that feel easier. Nevertheless, I think what we end up doing is we focus for 17 seconds or maybe occasion for 64 seconds, and then we figure we're done and we don't need to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas when we were talking about 15 minutes, we just stretched out that whole parameter, that whole paradigm by a large amount. Now we're not even thinking about 17 or 64 seconds. We're thinking about 15 minutes to overcome the momentum of all the junk going on that we don't want.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point too. And a good thing to remember is that we are not just moving forward into this realm of, thinking about what we want. There's momentum of the other thoughts
that
we need to overcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
So, I mean, I now understand the 17 seconds as a goal that I needed to reach at one point because I was doing 1 second. And I did get it up to 17 seconds on occasion. That was a victory. And it was a good victory because now I was able to manifest a better thought. And then the next goal was 64 seconds. And that was also a victory because now I was actually able to start manifesting things that I wanted. Not as consistently as I would have liked, but nevertheless, I was able to do it. And now I'm thinking about 15 minutes. And at 15 minutes, well, now I'm reversing momentums that I don't want and replacing them with a momentum that I do want, that feels better, that's easier, that maintains my focus with a lot less effort, and that allows me to shed all of the resistances that I've got built up. And I
When you
have
say
this,
it that way,
and,
it sounds so powerful.
and then I have the sneaking suspicion that I don't end up stopping at 15 minutes. Because I think that what really the goal is, the real goal is to get to the point where we're living our entire day that way.
And where it's our default.
Yeah.
And that started to happen for me with the pivoting. Now, here's what's interesting, and I think this is human nature, and probably everyone can relate. I know it's like during the whole time that I was really focused because I did not want to get sick. The pivoting started to become almost default for me. And then I got better, and I would set my sights on new things to create, and I would use the pivot function, but I haven't used it really that much lately. Because things are really good.
Isn't that funny how we just let go of stuff that we get it to work once and then we stop?
Yeah. It's like, okay, you know what I'll be doing today? Pivot. Oh.
I mean, they're all good tools. And that's why we talk about them, because they are good tools, and they're good to learn, and they're good to apply. But it just keeps reinforcing over and over. We got to apply them, and not just here or there, not just kind of at random or whenever the mood strikes us. We got to apply them all the time. And when we do, it gets easier.
Right, and when we apply them all the time, and they become natural, and they become our default method of dealing with things.
Right.
Then when the big thing comes that we really need to deal with, it will be much easier.
Well, I think at that point, the big thing is no longer a big thing.
Well, it's like we were talking about at one section of this book. They were talking about someone, I can't remember now, who escaped the jaws of a lion.
Right.
Right? And they were saying, yeah, you don't learn all this when you're in the lion's mouth.
Yes.
Like, you have to already have worked on this. So we've been traveling through the book Money and the Law of Attraction, learning to attract wealth, health, and happiness. We're on this section about well-being. And before we jump in, I want to remind our listeners, if you haven't subscribed yet, we would love you to do that.
Absolutely. Very easy to do. Go to the homepage at loatoday.net. The instructions are right there. It takes a minute. It's free. And then you get all of our episodes flowing easily, without any effort, to your smartphone or to your device every single day, so that you can play them anytime you want to. And what we're realizing now is that there are a lot of people who are binge listeners. There are people who will just, put it on and just keep playing episode after episode throughout their day in some cases. And we love that. That's great. So become a binge listener. Become a subscriber.
Yes, please do subscribe, and then share and let people know that you've subscribed, and then let us know how you're enjoying the show. We'd love you to call in, email us, connect with us on social media. We're all over social media. So
use the contact form on the website. I mean, there's so many ways to contact us, but we love it. We absolutely do. So, yes, the money and the law of attraction. Like you said, I think we're in part 4, and we've been talking about the importance of well-being. It really does affect everything, focusing on well-being. I think that's what my exercise this morning was all about, focusing on well-being. And in the process of doing that, of course, we have Jerry as our guide, because Jerry likes to ask all these really, really specific, detailed questions that just, tear it apart and tear it into little pieces and then make it granularized until it's down to little tiny itty-bitty things, and then work through them one grain at a time.
Jerry had, may he rest in peace, Jerry had a very interesting life. He'll bring up these stories about the circus or this.
Yeah.
It's like, what? And he asks very interesting questions.
He does.
Yeah.
So this particular subtopic now is entitled, Can We Consciously Grow New Muscle and Bone? And Jerry asks, I consciously, deliberately added muscle to my body in my early years because I wanted to. But can we consciously affect our bones as well? What a question.
It is Interesting question. Abraham says you can in the same way. The difference is that the current belief about the muscle is there. The current belief about the bone is not.
Yeah. Belief is everything. Thought is everything. So Jerry says, yeah, that's true. I saw a man who had developed tremendous muscles, and I wanted that. And because many others were doing it, I believed I could too. But I haven't seen bone changed.
Abraham says the reason that more things do not change more quickly in your societies today is because most people are giving their attention predominantly to what is. In order to affect change, you must look beyond what is. It slows you down tremendously if you need to see evidence of something before you believe it, because that means you have to wait for someone else to create it before you can believe it. But when you understand that the universe and the law of attraction will respond to your imagined idea as quickly as it responds to an observed idea, then you can move quickly into new creations without having to wait for someone to accomplish it first.
And it's so true. Of course, those of us who are trying to become more skilled, deliberate creators, what we do is we recognize that we want to have the evidence. So we say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to create new evidence in my mind, because that's what Abraham taught me to do. And I'm going to believe it. I'm going to get excited for it. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go look for it. So we're basically doing the same thing, but we're willing to do a little bit of setup first.
That's funny. Well, I think it's interesting. The whole idea, this sentence made me chuckle a little bit inside. It slows you down tremendously if you need to see evidence of something before you believe it. But we've been talking about slowing down.
Oh, yeah.
And being willing to be a little more patient,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is so true. Yesterday we talked about that thoughts are real, and that they're real whether they're memories or whether they're imaginations, or whether there's something that about something we consider to be real already or already in existence, or whether we're just dreaming about it. That all of those thoughts are all real.
They are. Yep. There's also another piece of this too. You mentioned being patient, and Abraham actually has spoken out against patience. They're not in favor of it. They don't want people to kind of get into the state of believing that it's going to always take a long time for stuff to show up. Because
I agree with that too. I don't want to be in the space where I expect things to take forever to show up.
Exactly.
No,
yeah. So I've been playing with that in my mind over the last few months, and I've kind of gotten to the point now where I've decided that I don't really need to be patient at all. It's not about being patient. It's about not keeping score. And I can't say I've gotten to the point yet where I've completely stopped keeping score. I still keep score. I just do it a lot less often.
Well, if you're not keeping score, then there would be no reason to be impatient.
That's right.
So patience and impatience, they wouldn't really even be an issue. It's just unfolding as it unfolds.
Exactly. That's my point. That's where I've been trying to get to. So, and I'm doing it more and more often. I am successfully getting to the point on different segments of my day. Talking about segment intending, different segments of my day where I feel like I just I'm not really interested in what the score is. I'm not really interested in did X show up yet. I'm more interested in how am I feeling. Taking my feeling pulse, so to speak, taking my temperature and finding out, am I feeling good? If I'm not feeling good, well, that's the only score I really need to know. If I'm not feeling good, that tells me I got to get into alignment. I got to get into that good feeling place. And if I'm feeling good, then I'm great.
It reminds me of the idea when people say, I'll be happy when.
Yes.
Well, right? It's like, and people say it all the time. I've probably said it myself at some point. It's
Sure.
like, well, I'll be happy when XYZ happens. Well, when you pin your good feelings onto something in the future, of course, then you're going to wait for it or be impatient that it's not showing up because, but it's so much easier to just make the choice to be happy now, to feel good now. We can choose that.
Now, in the context of what we were just discussing, the conversation actually went on between Jerry and Abraham. And Jerry asked a curious question. And as I'm looking at the question, I'm trying to connect it to what Abraham just said. And I'm not sure what the connection is, so maybe you have an idea. Jerry says, so the challenge is being that pioneer, the first one out. What do you think he means by that?
Abraham Abraham's talking about um, waiting, for someone else to, it's like we've talked about the 4 minute mile,
Yeah.
that nobody thought they could run a mile in 4 minutes. And then someone did. And after that, people realized it could be done. So Jerry's saying, so the challenge then is being the pioneer, being the first one, because then we're not having to be patient and wait and see evidence. And so Abraham says the leading edge requires vision and positive expectation. But it's really where the most powerful exhilaration is. To be in a state of desire and to have no doubt is the most satisfying experience possible. But to want something and not believe in your ability to achieve it does not feel good. When you think only of what you desire without constant contradictions that are filled with doubt or disbelief, the universe response to your desire comes quickly. And in time, you begin to feel the power of your deliberate thought. But that kind of pure thought takes practice. Oh, this is what we've been talking about this
It
morning.
is.
This is what
Yeah.
you were doing this
That's
morning.
right.
That kind of pure thought takes practice, and it requires that you spend less time observing what is and more time visualizing what you would like to experience. In order to tell the new and improved story about your physical experience, you must spend time thinking and speaking about the experience you would like to live. And I want to point out that they use this term, you must spend time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not 15 minutes we were talking about, or longer, or whatever. At least 17 seconds. It's all time related. The most powerful thing you can do, and this is all in italics, the most powerful thing you can do, the thing that will give you much greater leverage than any action, is to spend time every day visualizing your life as you want it to be. We encourage that you go to a quiet and private environment for 15 minutes every day where you can close your eyes and imagine your body, your environment, your relationships, and your life in ways that please you. What has been has nothing to do with what will be. And what others experience has nothing to do with your experience. But you must find a way to separate yourself from all that, from the past and from the others, in order to be what you want to be.
That phrase, they use it a lot. You must find a way. You must find a way. And I remember the first few times I read that, I was thinking, I'm asking you what it is. What do you mean you're telling me I have to go find it? I'm asking you. That's why I'm reading the darn book.
I don't want to find a way. Well, so yeah, I love that how this all unfolded this morning with you having the realization when you look back that it probably took about 15 minutes, and here they are saying
Say
you must
15
find.
minutes. I mean, oh my goodness. We shouldn't be surprised, because what they're really talking about there is meditation. And like you pointed out, that's the typical time associated with meditation. But it is fascinating for me, particularly, that I experienced the change in momentum taking 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's wow. Yeah. I actually, now I have a direct thing to correlate in my mind to explain to me why 15 minutes is so important. Because
I think
that's
this
the time
whole
it takes.
section is so amazing. I want to read it again.
Okay.
Just this part in italics.
Okay.
The most powerful thing you can do. Because when you start a sentence like that, the most powerful thing you can do, this is like, okay, pay attention.
Oh, yeah.
The most powerful thing you can do, the thing that will give you much greater leverage than any action, is to spend time every day visualizing your life as you want it to be. We encourage that you go to a quiet and private environment for 15 minutes every day where you can close your eyes and imagine your body, your environment, your relationships, and your life in ways that please you. What has been has nothing to do with what will be. And what others experience has nothing to do with your experience. But you must find a way to separate yourself from all of that, from the past and from the others, in order to be what you want to be. Good stuff.
I just realized That second to last paragraph, I said it was about meditation. It's actually about both. It is
Yeah.
about meditation, but it's also about deliberate focus. Because it says, we encourage that you go to a quiet and private environment for 15 minutes every day where you can close your eyes. That's the meditation part. And imagine your body, your environment, your relations, and your life in ways that please you. That's the deliberate focus part. It's both.
Right. And, when I think of meditation, um, I often think of metta meditation or Brahmavihara meditation, which are types of meditation that I use, that I'm familiar with, that come from Buddhist teachings. And often in those meditations, we are visualizing not just ourselves, but the things that we wish for others as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's not just clearing the mind of any thought at all. There's often lots of thought going on that's directed towards creating uh, specific things.
So I guess I was meditating today because I was doing both. I was focusing on, I was not just getting myself relaxed. Well, I was already relaxed. I was in bed. But I was also focusing for at least 15 minutes and with my eyes closed, although sometimes I had my eyes open, but mostly I had my eyes closed. And I was focusing on what I wanted, but I was also spending a lot of that time focusing on what I wanted for Louise.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing all of that. I was meditating in a way I didn't know I was meditating.
And this morning when I was finding my place in the book, a page opened that I had highlighted, and it was the section that says, "You will know when you are of value to anyone when you're able to think about the person and feel good at the same time. When you love others without worry, you are an advantage to them. When you
Boy,
enjoy them, you help them. When you expect them to succeed, you help them." And so I thought that was interesting because, you love Louise, and this morning when you were meditating or focusing on things that you wanted for her, you were doing it without worrying. The worrying thoughts were the ones you were saying no to, and you were bringing in the better feeling thoughts. And it's like really, really powerful.
and it was a bit of a battle at first. I mean, early on, the worry thoughts were winning. I had to kind of stick with it. That's what the 15-minute part was about.
Right.
I had to stick with it for the 15 minutes and just keep focusing and refocusing and refocusing. Because after that, about that 15-minute period, then I finally gained the upper hand. I gained the momentum I wanted in my direction rather than in the direction it was all going before. But early
Yeah.
on, I was kind of struggling against that. I was struggling against fears and concerns and worries and all kinds of stuff.
It's kind of like we're trying to drive a car, but the car has a mind of its own and it keeps trying to turn over onto the other road. And we have to keep trying to steer it back. No, I want to go over
Or
here.
or another way to look at it is kind of like trying to drive the car with the parking brake on.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because the next section, what about when one's desire overrules one's belief?
Ooh. Well, okay. Let's see what Jerry has to say. He asks, people have been running for thousands of years, and no one has been able to cover a mile in 4 minutes. Weren't we just talking about this a minute ago?
No, I feel like we're just really aligned.
This is Twilight Zone time. Okay. And then a man named Roger Bannister did it, and once he did it, now many others have run the 4 minute mile as well.
Wow. Abraham says, when people do not allow the fact that no one else has ever done something to prevent them from doing it, they are of great advantage to others because once they break through and create it, then others can observe it and in time come to believe or expect it. And for that reason, everything that you accomplish is of value to your society. Your platform for progressive living continues to expand, and life does get better and better for everyone. However, we are wanting to take you beyond the need to see it before you can believe it. We want you to understand that if you believe it, then you will see it.
Mm.
Anything that you practice in your mind until the idea begins to feel natural to you must come to physical fruition. Well, now that's a good part to remember there.
That was a
That
Wayne Dyer quote, wasn't it? If you believe it, you will see it.
it might be, but this right here about anything you practice in your mind until the idea becomes to feel natural to you
Mm.
must come to physical fruition. The law of attraction guarantees it. You will feel enormous liberation when you realize that you do not have to wait for someone else to do something in order to prove that it can be done, or before you allow yourself to do it. As you practice new thoughts, reaching for improved emotions, and then see the evidence that the universe will provide, you will come to know your own true power. If someone were to tell you that you are experiencing an incurable disease, you could then say with confidence, I will decide what I will live, for I am the creator of my experience. If your desire is strong enough, it can outweigh your negative beliefs and your recovery will begin. It's
I
not
want, I
so.
want, I want to stop you for a second there because that's a poignant topic in mine and Louise's life today. She has a good friend whose husband, who she admires very much, is currently dealing with stage 3 pancreatic cancer. He's in really bad shape. And what we've been trying to do is we've been trying to essentially do what they're saying here. Think good thoughts for this person, focus on what is it that person most wants. That's what we want for that person, all that kind of thing. But
Right.
ultimately, if you're dealing with it yourself, and this is the part I wanted to underline here, it says if someone were to tell you that you are experiencing an incurable disease, you could then say with confidence, I will decide what I will live.
Yes.
I will decide what I will live, for I'm the creator of my
And
own
I is
experience.
underlined.
Yeah.
I will decide.
Yes. Yes. And it's not a phrase that we usually use. I mean, it's a very unusual phrase. I will decide what I will live. But boy, is that a great phrase. It's a phrase that we really need to kind of incorporate more into our daily thought pattern and our daily speaking pattern. Because it's a statement of self-empowerment.
It is. I will decide what I will live. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I am the creator of my experience.
That's wow.
If your desire is strong enough, it can outweigh your negative beliefs and your recovery will begin. And I like that idea,
Mm.
that we may have negative beliefs, but if our desire is strong enough. I told that story um, last week about the woman that her daughters had brought her in when I managed the naturopath office, and that looking at her test results, it seemed like an easy fix, but people aren't computers or
Right.
cars, right? We can bring the car in or the computer and they look what's wrong and say, oh, this is easy. It just needs this. You just need to replace this drive, or you just need to fix this brake line or whatever. But people are more complex because they have a will.
Mm.
And all the things that seemed that they would be easily fixed with this woman had no effect. And I was confused because we had helped so many people. And the doctor that I was managing the office for, a very wise woman who'd worked in this field for decades, said to me, well, when someone loses the will to live, almost nothing, there's really nothing that you can do. And that's what this reminds me here of in reverse. If your desire is strong enough, it can outweigh your negative beliefs.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
if your will is strong enough, if you want it bad enough, then that desire can outweigh those negative beliefs. I think that's pretty encouraging to know.
It's encouraging, and it also kind of strikes at the heart of a couple of truisms that we can now see really aren't all that true. One truism is that, let's see, how is it usually phrased? If your willpower is great enough, you can quit X. And the false assumption that's built in there is that your willpower is weak. Actually, I now understand our willpower is always strong.
Mm.
We're actually very willful beings.
Yeah, it's just what direction we're pointing it in, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you've got a hose with water spurting out, you can spray it on the flowers or you can spray it on the neighbors. You're going to get two different results, but you're the one spraying the water.
Yeah. So Abraham says it's not so different from the story of the mother whose child is pinned beneath the object that weighs many, many times more than anything she's ever lifted. But in her powerful desire to save her child, she does lift it.
Mm-hmm.
Under normal conditions, she could not begin to lift this object. But with such powerful desire, her normal beliefs become temporarily irrelevant. If you said to her, do you believe you can lift that object? She would say, of course not. I can't even pick up my suitcase when it's full. But belief had nothing to do with this. Her child was dying, and her wanting was to free her child, and so she did.
And therein lies the second part. I said there were two pieces about willpower, two truisms, if you will, that really aren't all that true. The first one is that if you have enough willpower, you can do X, and the truth is you always have enough willpower. The second part is the truism that says, and I'm trying to look for an example in my mind, I'm not finding one quickly, but it's a truism that says your willpower isn't really what matters. What matters is what somebody else does, or somebody else's willpower. Let's put it that way. Somebody else's willpower is not really what matters. You can make them do something. You can will them to do something, and they will end up doing it. And that's also false. They're both false. The truth is that we all have tremendous willpower. We have it at all times, and we're the ones deciding which way we're going to go on the road, or whether we're ready to get off the road entirely.
Right. In Hermeticism and in alchemy and magic, there's an idea of having a united will. And that's the most powerful thing we can do. Because most of the time our will is not united, it's divided.
Exactly. Yeah.
Part of us wants to do that, but part of us wants to keep doing that other thing. And that's why we have trouble. But what you said a minute ago is like, if you had enough willpower, and we always have enough willpower.
We do.
That's correct.
It
now,
is.
If we could just unite it and make all parts of us have the will to point that will in one direction, we could accomplish whatever we wanted.
The classic examples are people who are looking for enough willpower to quit smoking cigarettes, or people who are looking for enough willpower to change their diet or something along that line. And the complaint is usually, well, I just don't have the willpower to do it. And the truth is, they actually have plenty of willpower. They have lots of willpower to smoke the cigarettes and to eat too much food. It's just
when
there.
When I was in coaching school, we did this exercise. And part of the exercise, I'm not going to explain the entire thing, but part of the exercise was kind of pros and cons. And of course, we had a room full of people and a big whiteboard. And we drew a line down the center of the whiteboard, and on one side we were going to write, the pros, the reasons why, and on the other side, reasons why not. And we didn't choose the topic. The instructor chose the topic, and the topic was smoking, and the reasons to keep smoking, and reasons. And I thought, this is the stupidest topic ever. Of course, I'm not a smoker, right? And I was like, there's no reason to. Why would we? Oh, this is great. We're going to have one side of the whiteboard completely filled up with and the other side is just going to be empty because
it's going to be
why? Anyway, well, what was crazy was that everyone was throwing out ideas, and as one does in a brainstorming session, one thought triggers another, and there's that greater mastermind kind of effect. We filled that whole whiteboard, and I'm still blown away when I think about it. that the reasons that like positive reasons for smoking, right? And they went beyond, well, smoking. There was the idea that it looks cool, stress relief. This idea came up, which kind of blew me away. Several people said that they worked in corporate spaces where if you were a smoker, you got 2 extra breaks a day.
Really? Oh my goodness.
And so they were like, I get an extra break because I was like, what? You get an extra break? What about someone who decides that they need a break to go out and like breathe fresh air? That we didn't get a fresh air break. But really, so I think it's such a great example for that divided will. It
is. It's a huge example. And
right? It's like the people that were like, well, I don't want to quit smoking because, this. They had a whole ton of reasons. But then part of me does want to quit smoking because of these other reasons. I know it's healthier. I know it's, blah, blah, blah. It will save me money. It will, right? And so, and when you're in that space of having a divided will, it's very hard to get that moving.
It's funny, too, because I remember as like a 19 or 20-year-old, I experimented with smoking cigarettes for a very short period of time. And I remember now why it was I didn't pursue it, why I didn't continue with it. It was the most simple reason in the world. I just didn't like it.
Right?
There are people who smoke who don't like it. That's the part that blows me away. For me, when I got to I don't like it, that was enough. But for others, nope, it's not enough.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that there are actually positive reasons that
Yeah.
keep people in that space. And I think, of course, what's so funny, my reaction and some of others of that being the topic and being just exasperated at it, and then at the end realizing, oh wow, if you can do that with that topic, you can probably do it with any topic.
You can. Yeah.
So there's always a positive intent. There's always a reason we hold on to things.
It's true. That's why it takes 15 minutes to overcome the momentum.
Right? Exactly.
Well, let's see. We got a couple minutes left. The next one's a short one, but it's a fun one, so I think we really ought to do it. It's entitled, But What If I Believe in Dangerous Germs? What a title
Dangerous
that is.
germs.
I believe in dangerous germs.
Not just any germs.
Jerry asks, I really do want to be healthy, but I also believe that I might catch some things. And so whenever I visit people who are in the hospital, I hold my breath as I walk down the corridor to avoid germs.
And Abraham says you must have very short visits.
And Jerry says, I do have short visits, and I keep going to the window and trying to get some air. So if I believe that I can avoid the germs by holding my breath, then will that belief keep me from getting sick?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question, though.
It is, though. Yeah.
Let's see if we can read through the answer. Abraham says, in your strange way, you are maintaining a vibrational balance. You want health. You believe that germs could make you sick. You believe that your behavior of avoiding the germs is preventing sickness, and so you achieve a balance that works for you. You are, however, going about it the hard way.
No kidding.
If you were really listening to your guidance system, you would not enter an environment where you believe there are germs that could compromise your well-being. The dread you feel about going into the hospital is your indicator that you're about to take action before you have achieved vibrational alignment. You could just not go to the hospital, but then you'd feel uncomfortable because you know that your sick friend would enjoy a visit from you. So you find a way to visit your friend without feeling dread. And that is what we mean by finding vibrational alignment before you take the action of entering the hospital. In time, you can come to believe so much in your well-being, or your desire for well-being can become so vivid that you could be in any environment and not feel a threat to your well-being. When you're in alignment with who you really are, and you are listening to your most powerful guidance system, you would never enter an environment where your well-being could be threatened. Unfortunately, many people override their own guidance system for the sake of pleasing others. Mm-hmm. Two people could enter the hospital as you have described it, one feeling no threat to well-being and the other feeling great threat. The first would not get sick, the second one would, not because of the germs that are present in the hospital, but because of the person's vibrational relationship to his or her own sense of well-being. We are not attempting to alter your beliefs, for we do not see your beliefs as inappropriate. It is our desire to make you aware of your own emotional guidance system so that you can achieve the balance of vibration between your desires and your beliefs. Doing the right thing means to do that which is in harmony with your intent and with your current beliefs.
It's not just their intention.
Really powerful.
It is. It's not just their intention. It's our intention. That's why we do the podcast. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time to do it today. But I have to, before we go, I have to say, Cindie, it's been great doing 3 straight episodes with you. I can't wait to do it again next week,
Let's do it next week.
Sounds good to me. And we hope that you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.